1X, the AI and robotics company, is offering us a new cleaner for $20,000. Are we letting Terminator into our home? Next up, Microsoft faces a major cloud outage, echoing Amazon's AWS recent DNS failures and service disruptions. Is it the bloody DNS again? This is the internet seriously. Hello, I'm Lucian Taylor in Oxford. I think this is, we've got cobwebs and spiders. Yeah. I think it's Halloween today, and I think this is meant to be...
we just wanted to, do this just for fun.
Yeah, okay.
As a new standard for the show.
I've signed in my rider that this stupid hat will be on my head for no more than 2 minutes. But the thing is, I don't find any... I'm going to talk a little when we talk about robots, about things that I find really scary. But I just don't find cobwebs and spiders and hats.
I think the witch's hat is
terrifying.
And
where are the
terrifying?
Where are the chockies? Where are the chockies? Where's the trick or treats?
Oh,
don't know.
Dumb silence. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, couple of interesting topics today. As an engineer, I'm really interested, obviously, in anything to do with robotics and AI. I think this is a fascinating topic, and as I was reading around it, there's all sorts of issues. And also the Microsoft outage, this thing about the DNS, I think it's a real kill switch, and I'm interested in your views on where we're going with this. So,
Hi, I'm Emily Taylor, and I'm interested as a policy person, obviously, on the impact of technology on societies. And I don't think there's nothing more visible and graphic than having a robot in your home and starting to really interact with something that feels and looks sort of humanoid but a little bit disturbing. And also, interested in the DNS failure apparently at Microsoft, how catastrophic these failures are and how detached the DNS industry and community is apparently from the rest of the technology supply chain.
I really love seeing you discuss this stuff with two skeletons on your head.
Super serious. Alice.
I'm Alice Taylor, and me and my spooky spider, who I think we need to name
for people who
before the end of the show.
Who are just listening, Alice has got a very lovely purple, sparkly... what's it?
Got
Tinsel
pipe cleaners
spider and pipe clean.
Yeah, as its legs. So
on her head.
Naming competition for the spider.
It actually looks like a wedding fascinator, Alice. It's definitely
right.
the most
Very
stylish
nice.
of the
Halloween
proms.
Royal wedding.
The least shaming of
Anyway,
all the...
I'm Alice Taylor. I'm a former speech and language therapist, so I'm very interested in the future of disability care with AI. And is it the future of disability care?
So this week, the 1X Neo robot was launched, and it's packed with exciting and fun features, interactive dance moves, AI mood programming. It can give a feel of different moods based upon interactions and can express different emotions like happiness and curiosity, and even playful mimic sarcasm, which seems a bit odd to me. I can't stand sarcastic people around. Things like real-time virtue travel guide and even cleaning your home. Alice, there's obvious sort of fun things here, but thinking about the challenges, we found, for example, the art community has got real issues with AI-generated materials as a terrible substitute for human-created art. Are we similar to the sort of the art world? Are we looking at the replacement of all workers, for example, care workers for disabled people here?
It's a very interesting question. I think it's been being discussed that we are about 2 months away from AI videos being indistinguishable from human-made videos. We've got a picture behind us of the Neo robot who... was chosen for Halloween because I literally can't think of a more terrifying, haunting design for it. Let's get a robot for people to help them at home. Let's make it look like it's in a horror film.
Can I just interrupt?
It looks like the face looks like a cross between Eve from WALL-E and a Cabbage Patch doll.
It also has a kind of Feathers McGraw sort of black beaded eyes stare. Oh, look at that! Yeah, nice. Eve
If I
from
could
Wally.
just, if I could just say,
friendlier,
I mean,
actually.
when in the 70s, they used to, in when you went for a dental filling, they would give you gas. And I don't know if anyone remembers the early versions of edition of Doctor Who, where they had the faceless people. And I remember coming back feeling in those days, you'd have a filling, but you'd be gassed. And then you come round and you feel sick and disabled and really very paranoid and strange as a child. And then I remember being sat down in front of Doctor Who, and anyone listening, try and guess the episode, please. It's like really early stuff. They were the faceless people, and I remember like blurring dreams.
Yeah.
That was scary stuff. The faceless people look like this Neo-robot now. And I remember also having you round as a child with other children round at our house, and the faceless. There was a faceless thing. So
the children.
Everything is about face-like with this thing, and I can't see much that's human-like apart from their shape. But Alice, you were talking about this as a surrogate for care workers.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting, the government have been saying like jobs that involve your hands are good jobs to have in the era of AI, and I think, to me, as a speech therapist, as someone who's worked a lot with people that have assistive technology and how rubbish assistive technology can be, is that humans are not actually optimized for caregiving, right? And actually, if we think about, so there's Ocado, the delivery, sort of luxury delivery supermarket. So we've got a picture behind us of the Ocado like first robot only warehouse. And they were like, we had to design a warehouse and stop thinking about making it accessible for humans because there aren't any humans, and actually something that's robot designed looks very different to something that's human designed. And my view is that actually the future of care and like personal care for people with disabilities will just look more and more like adaptive, like handrails and stuff for the stairs. It will just get smarter and smarter, and that it won't look like a humanoid like the Neo robot. And actually, stuff that's optimized for lifting a person in and out of bed is a hoist. That doesn't look like a person. There's lots of adaptive technology that we already have, and I think that's hopefully going to get better and better.
So that isn't that a difference? And Emily, this takes me on to my pardon me, my question to you. What you're getting is adaptive and better robot equipment, which I think, they build cars with it, and you don't really need the humanoid bit. Where you've got loneliness, where you've got people who want comfort, where you've got people who don't know how to press the buttons or start a robot arm and want to interface with somebody. We talk to elderly people that we look after who say, can you help me with my phone or Amazon order because I don't know how to do it? And you are the humanoid interface really between them and their mobile phone. I'm interested in the potential pitfalls and controversies around neobots as humanoid, and I found many. Emotional attachments, people becoming emotionally attached and then their humanoid robot is taken away from them because they can't afford it. Should the humanoid robot be treated with respect? Will they collect sensitive data? Will they exploit emotional vulnerabilities and manipulate their owners and controllers? Will they offer you brands and products that are being served, within your own home that are being sponsored by the robot makers?
Oh, no.
If they fail to do something like save your life, who is responsible? So, and I was just thinking, this all has an upside, but any one of these could be potentially catastrophic, couldn't
Yes, it could. But also all of those aspects come through when you have a carer who's not part of the family or part of a trusted circle coming into an elderly or vulnerable person's life. So if you are like many people living far away from your parents or other vulnerable people that you're looking after, you're relying on humans or the care system, and the care system currently will if you have the utmost level of care, you will have 4 visits a day, 2-handed, often different people coming in at each point. You don't know, as somebody who's looking after a vulnerable person, whether those people are rough, whether they're going to handle a very vulnerable person roughly or kindly. And it's really pot luck. And all of those aspects of trust that you've just gone through, Luce, about, are they going to be exploiting these people? Are they worthy of the trust? Are they going to be selling or monitoring? Those apply to anybody that we include in a very trusted role. So the caregiving thing, I was very interested in what you said, Alice, about people are not optimized for caregiving. And there's an aspect of robot caregivers that's really attractive, which is like if they're programmed to be kind and patient and sweet and respectful, then they'll probably do a better job than an impatient, short-tempered, maybe violent carer. But of course, having observed a lot of elderly people trying to interact with technology, the things that we know are, 1, the technology always goes wrong, and 2, it's never designed for an old person to actually manage it.
Alice, picking up on that point, we've been encouraged to say, please like or share, and please ask your voice activated listening speaker to find the podcast The Internet Seriously. Now, when I say that to the receiver of voice commands at home, I won't say their name.
Yes.
When I say that, they always say, I can't find that person in your contact list, or they will interrupt a conversation and say, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I'm like, speak up.
Well, it's Halloween. It's like an exorcist, a ghost rises from, you're like, where is this voice coming from? Yeah, well, I think it is really interesting. Technology always goes wrong could not be more true in healthcare. So when I was a speech therapist, one of my jobs that I did was helping very, very disabled people, very physically disabled people with things like eye gaze devices to communicate just with eye movements when they couldn't move any other part of their body. I think I saw, I would say, 0 instances where I would turn up to, say, the house or the school of the patient and they just were using their eye gaze device. Always it would be like, oh, we're logged out and we can't remember the password.
Yes.
And that would just be the first downfall. Or it would be like, yeah, he's got his assistive technology iPad. It's somewhere in the cupboard, I think, collecting dust. And it was really sad because this was really powerful technology that could follow a person's eye gaze. But the barriers were actually things that I think software developers just don't think about because they don't spend time with these people. They make a fantastic, brilliant piece of software, but they don't go and have to help someone use it. And they don't see that a password is the biggest downfall for their incredible
in
device.
early days, I used to train nurses in the NHS to actually go to old people and work with them, but also the technology. And I remember one class where I was handing out these devices and several of them were broken irreparably by the care workers themselves before I even started the class. But I was also interested in this paradox, because I think the engineers at the moment are programming the AI algorithms to be very empathetic. So we had our own Joanna Grant from our company interacting, and you played something on the podcast of her, and it's really stuck in my mind because what happened was Gemini started copying you, so that if you sounded sort of yay and fun, then Gemini would kind of go yay fun, yeah, everything's
they
fun.
Match your tone,
it would
they
echo
match
your tone. Now, if you've got somebody who's, for example, a challenged old person who tends to feel sorry for themselves and can get into a sinkhole, and I'm not talking from personal experience necessarily, sometimes you need, and I've seen nurses and care workers of, well, let's not be so sad, let's kind of cheer ourselves up. And do you think the robots are going to help you sort of pull yourself out of yourself, when they're programmed to sort of mimic the tone? Do you think they'll have that professional knowledge, that subtext, that ability to sort of play against what's happening?
Well, this is such an ongoing ethical debate in the world of AI therapists, and I've seen some very compelling arguments on both sides of, like AI therapists actually are very powerful and could be very useful. We just don't yet have regulation. It's like we almost need to treat them like healthcare professionals and have them adhere to a professional body of standards as a healthcare professional would. And at the moment, they're just kind of out there, well, hey, you could just ask a random person on the street, like, what should I do for my depression? And they could give you an answer. And I think, this is stuff that is not easy to kind of have one answer.
Well, it's not easy to talk about as humans, yet alone to program. Emily, just one other point on this robot thing. I'm fascinated by the concept that you used to talk about, and here we are again, the uncanny valley.
Yes, the uncanny valley, and you really feel it when you look at the face of Neo, which does look a bit like
Feathers McGraw.
Yeah, Feathers McGraw. Well, Feathers McGraw, Eve a bit from WALL-E, a Cabbage Patch doll. There seems to be a sort of like squishy element to Neo the robot. It's kind of humanoid.
Yeah.
It's meant, and the advertising is showing an elderly man with his arm around Neo like a pal, and it's like, this is meant to be cuddled. This is meant to be in your life as a trusted companion. And it's sort of, just immediately made me think of iRobot, and then I go into a kind of loop of robot wars and the robot that went wrong, and what do you do when something just disobeys its programming or behaves oddly? You need to understand humanity so deeply to be in that sort of programming care and understand all of the pitfalls, all of the temptations, all of the ways that humans can react. And like you said, Lucian, are you always going to take the tone from the person that you're caring for? And will you end up in a little depressed sinkhole? That could be incredibly, incredibly damaging.
I'm going to... my uncanny valley was a loaded question because we're still in Halloween as far as I'm concerned for a little bit.
Well, you've got the hat on.
Well, this hat is about to leave, but I wanted to make one final point, which was the uncanny valley is a concept in robotics and human-robot interaction that describes the eerie or unsettling feeling people experience when a robot or artificial being appears almost, but not quite human. And it was first coined by Masahiro Mori, a Japanese robotist in 1970. Now, we've talked about scary, and apparently this is scary, this cobweb scary. Not at all. When I walk into a room and somebody's in there, but they're remaining quite still, and then I notice them, you get a jump scare. That is scary. And I think this neo-humanoid robot is potentially this creepy
Very
thing
uncanny.
Standing in your room in this uncanny way.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, you got this. But when you have a bad dream and you think there's a murderer in my bedroom.
Yes.
You
wake up.
No, it's just
the face
Neo.
of Neo
it's just,
the robot
it's just
is
me,
there
sir. I'm ready. In
looming over you.
Yes. What have we been
Anything
watching?
I can do for you,
it's like,
sir.
It's like having the butler in the room in Downton. We've been watching Downton, and the butler kind of comes in. What's going on in here? Oh, hello, Neo. Sorry, I didn't realise you were there. Anyway, that is the end of that, and that's the end of Halloween. There's the Halloween section. So let's so now it is time for our Guilty Pleasure Online.
I think I've got a guilty pleasure.
Oh, Emily.
I do.
What is your guilty pleasure online?
Well, this week we were treated to going to a concert of Australian Pink Floyd. And they play...
What's it called? Aussie Floyd.
Aussie Floyd. They play the Pink Floyd music, which I always think of as very studio-based as music. They play it live, and it's absolutely incredible. So there was lots of... And Pink Floyd also, I think they're part of their stage show. I understand. I never got to see them live, but part of their stage show involved a lot of visuals, a lot of, use of the screen. And they've got this round screen in the middle with a lot of both 70s footage and also AI-generated footage. And so AI art and AI animation is a huge controversial area in society and in our household. And I felt sort of guilty because in songs like The Machine, which are all about, society being like a machine, they had this incredibly uncanny robot with teeth. The teeth really got me. And I think it was all AI animation, but it sort of worked because it was AI animation, because that was the point. And I felt really torn about it because I felt, oh, this is bad and I shouldn't be enjoying it. But the whole thing was really amazing, and also pulled me back to listening to Pink Floyd and reflecting on what a great influence they've been and how familiar all those amazing songs
fantastic.
were.
I want to also talk about it briefly because I just thought it was an amazing thing. And also Pia Jones, who works with us behind the desk, is part of the crew there down in Oxford Playhouse. And I thought it was just, the whole thing was just so professionally done. And I couldn't believe they did a get in and a get out with their Pantechnic and lorry outside. I thought the whole thing was amazing. I want to come back to the AI point, Alice, but before I do that, I feel we're in a new era. This is 50 years since the publishing of Bohemian Rhapsody. We've actually got we're moving into an era where, half a century ago there are these composers, and you almost can think of them like the classic composers. And I felt to some extent, I thought the show was amazing. I thought the sound was amazing, like I was hearing an orchestra playing Mozart. I felt the performance was sort of quite, I don't know, it was very, very professional, but it didn't have that bite that Pink Floyd would have because they weren't performing it. They were just it was like a recital, and the singer was a perfect singer, and would rather than crowd diving into the audience, he would walk off during the bits that he wasn't actually. And I'm not criticizing the band because I think they're absolutely superb, and I heard that even Dave Gilmour loves them and booked them for his own 50th birthday party and said he's never seen Pink Floyd before. He's never been to a Pink Floyd. I thought this was all really funny, but I felt it's cold in the way that I felt like a backing band for ABBA that we saw, ABBA Voyage as well. It's not the band. It maybe doesn't have to be. We're now watching a recital of things rather than...
Well, I had a different reflection because actually looking back, that sort of the second half of the 20th century, particularly from the 60s onwards, was an incredible flowering of musical creativity in a different way. The singer-songwriter, the non-written down, the non-scored orchestral type of music. A lot of these were just created in the studio and done by ear. And yet they are incredible pieces of creativity and music. And so having them performed by others is actually right. In a way, they should be enjoyed live, and you can't have the original artists forever. I'd be really interested in your thoughts, Alice, as a musician.
Yeah, well, I want to kind of tie this back to the internet seriously. You said you had a question about AI.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
We saw during it, and Emily talked about it, the AI art, and I wanted to ask you about, loop back to that, because actually the AI video content and material was in the song The Machine.
Welcome to the Machine.
From Wish You Were Here. And the AI was lots of uncanny androids. And I remember in the 70s, the machine was like a machine in a factory. And it was just like, it was almost a metaphor for industrialization and mass globalization coming up, and everything's being built by machines. And Ozzy Floyd sort of took it a step further, and they made it about AI androids, neo robots, and stuff that's very, very and quite dark. But they clearly used AI generative
this
video.
is what I wanted
and is
to
it
sort of...
so toxic that you can't even be ironic about it?
Well, what I wanted to ask you is, how do you know it was AI generated, and how do you know it wasn't crafted carefully over months
I don't. Well,
graphic
the
designer?
person who told me this, because I challenged them on this, said it's got the yellow AI in it, where everything's tinted yellow.
Well, but then it's like, have they done? is this somebody who knows about what AI footage looks like, and they have 3D rendered painstakingly something to look AI generated?
Yeah.
And it's almost, I'm interested in, can we tell the difference, and does it matter if we can't?
I'm interested in that. I also believe firmly that, you know, I've been in this game long enough to have seen various waves, which is, you know, like even blogs, for crying out loud. Blogs will make everybody into a writer. Newsflash, they don't. Most people cannot write anything. And I believe that creative people respond to technology and use technology in creative ways. And I couldn't tell whether it was, I was told it was AI, art and animation. And that for some of the people in our party was a massive switch off. I felt that it was part of the artistic message, and also that the creativity of actually imagining what you would like to see is something that most people can't do.
Fantastic. I've got a couple of questions. I forgot to ask a question at the end of the Neo humanoid robot bit. Question for you out there is $20,000. Are you going to buy one? And on the AI art, if there's any Ozzy Floyd fans out there, do you think that was real AI art, or do you think that was generated human art and video material generated and designed to look like AI art? And Ozzy Floyd, please respond. You know, it was a great show. Lovely. It'd be great to hear from you. Right. Next topic. Microsoft faces a major cloud outage, echoing Amazon's AWS recent DNS failures and service disruptions. I find this quite a boring topic, but it's impactful. Alice, we've seen a lot of similarities in the most recent outages between Microsoft and Amazon. I think the scale of this was different. It's, you know, I mean, in Amazon, it was kind of just US region, but thousands of third-party servers sort of collapsed because they depended upon Amazon for bits of their service. And it just showed the risk of a single region failure, whereas Microsoft was much more about them and their customers and Azure. So you had like long duration with Amazon, a shorter duration with Microsoft. And it was mostly Amazon services like Microsoft 365 and Xbox that were taken out of that. But it's, you know, the commonality here is a failure of DNS record keeping, which propagates through the system and it takes ages to replace itself and refresh itself. Yada yada. Is this just too boring a problem for people to really get their head around or care?
I was struck by, you said the word boring, and you said it again. There's a lot of hackers out there who want you to find it boring, because that's how they can cause so much chaos and disruption. They want everything to be kind of hidden in acronyms and confusing language and things like DNS, which most people don't understand. I work in digital policy, and it's taken me years to get my head around what actually is the DNS, why do I care about it? And actually, the more that people find it boring, the more we will just keep seeing these attacks. And, you know, if people don't care enough about them, by the time there's something too big to undo or too impactful, like we've seen this year with M&S and, you know, Land Rover or Range Rover, it's too late to do anything.
Emily, I want to talk to you about the DNS industry and why we don't hear much from them, why people don't really know about them. But before that, let's think about what is the DNS and how it works. Okay. This is such a boring subject. I've lived with this most of my life. I've configured DNS records. I've run critical web services. And the best thing to do is literally read out what the chat is saying at the moment. How it works: when you request a website, your browser contacts a DNS server to resolve the domain name into an IP address. This is typically a multi-step process involving several DNS servers, including authoritative servers, recursive resolvers, and cache layers. It's critical because it allows websites and online services to be reachable by name instead of requiring people to remember long IP addresses. But if it fails or if it's misconfigured, users cannot access services even if the server hosting the service is up and running. It's like the postman losing all the addresses in the world and having to deliver posts. And it's like, where's my post? My house is still here. Why can't you deliver the post? Because there's no address system anymore. And common issues are DNS misconfiguration, DNS server downtime. Now, and what I think is DNS caching problems. So the DNS resolvers, propagate themselves with fresh records and hang on to those duff records until they refresh again. So you can have stuff can't be fixed easily. And Microsoft published that it was an inadvertent tenant configuration change. Now, a lot of people in the news and tech industry have been trying to, work out, even I hung Gemini this morning. I said, Gemini, what is an inadvertent tenant configuration change? Gemini just started looping. It couldn't. I'm working on that and trying to work out what Amazon means. I'll be back to you. And an hour later, it was still. But Emily, DNS is clearly critical. And in cybersecurity, we know that if you can hit the DNS with, say, phishing attack websites and things, it's a kill switch. You can take out a lot of attack vector by doing that. And we see that because it's a kill switch for major businesses.
Yes, and I think that's exactly the point. The internet was designed as this decentralized network of networks. Nobody's in charge, but there's one element that is a choke point, and that is the domain name system. DNS means domain name system, and that is the thing that gives humans the ability to find things on the internet. Machines like reading numbers, people can remember names. So it's the name to address a crossover. So it's really important. And actually, as people I see policymakers always gravitate towards the DNS as a solution. It's terrible that these bad things are happening online, whether it's the distribution of images of child abuse, whether it's scams and fraud, something that we all work on. Can't you just eliminate the domain name? And in some cases, you should, because it's been created very recently. It doesn't have any other purpose. And actually, if you want to kind of stop that thing happening, go to the DNS. But the outages of AWS and Microsoft also are a warning sign to policymakers and other people of be careful what you wish for, because if you tamper with the DNS and take big things out of the internet, you take big things out of the internet, and there are many orders of damage that occur from that very small change.
Alice, I know you want to talk about the DNS all day, but it's time for our doom scroll of the week. I'm sorry, we're going to have to improve this music.
I like it. It's sort of hypnotic.
It's time for our doom scroll of the week.
It's the mental state that you are in when doom scrolling.
Like.
Yes,
thank you.
Perfectly.
Yeah. I just want something scarier. Alice, what is your doom scroll of the week?
So my doom scroll of the week is, and it's sort of, I was like, is it a guilty pleasure or is it a doom scroll? It's, software developers designing deliberately horrendous user interfaces. And they do, I think it's a competition. So we've got a video here of one of these design challenges, and it demonstrates they tried to make the worst volume controller possible. So this one is like, you have to throw the volume controller, tilt the volume control, blow it up like a bicycle tire, and then it slowly decreases in volume. And there's other ones like doing kind of tick the box yes or no, but in order to tick the box you have to play a game where a ball rolls down like one of those wooden peg games, and it randomly selects the yes or the no.
Emily, we're just moving into Heath Robinson here, away from, I am a fan, I'm reluctant to say, because they're such a mega giant, of Apple and their interfaces, where it's what I call no choice design. It's just one thing on the screen and then another thing on the screen. Even older relatives that I know don't, really find it difficult to use Apple devices.
Yes.
But this is simplicity's best, isn't it?
I do think so. I love this. This is so
roll the dice for
this
your
is so
volume.
cute, and it reminds me of Kit Boger's captures
the endless scammer maze.
for the Kit Boger, the brilliant
Yeah.
scam baiter. Yeah, that's hilarious, and I can also really see the appeal, Alice, of just like getting sucked into this world. Simplicity is best. Nobody reads the manual of their devices or technology, so it should be something that you can just intuitively understand.
Thank you very much.
Not happening with the volume controls.
Thank you. We're almost there. Before we sign off, please remember to like, share, follow, and ask your smart speaker to please find the podcast, The Internet Seriously. Oh, I think we need to put on a final, it's Halloween. We're heading there. We have been discussing 1X, the AI and robotics company, offering a new cleaner for $20,000 and letting potentially Terminator into our home. No, they've got security checks. And Microsoft facing a major cloud outage, the second one in 2 weeks, following Amazon's recent DNS failure and service disruptions creating global outages. Thank you.